The 1930s in America were years of hardship and hope, where families held on to simple joys while facing the weight of the Great Depression. From ice boxes in kitchens to swing music on the radio, from breadlines to Saturday matinees, everyday life was a mix of struggle and resilience. Let's journey back nearly a century to rediscover 100 forgotten things from 1930s America that time has nearly left behind. Iceboxes stood in kitchens long before refrigerators, with blocks of ice delivered by the iceman. Families would carefully arrange milk, butter, and leftovers to keep them cool. The sound of melting ice dripping into pans below was part of daily life, a reminder of simpler times before modern conveniences. Quilting bees were more than just sewing gatherings, they were community lifelines. Women came together with scraps of fabric, laughter, and stories, stitching warmth into every quilt. Each square carried memories, hardships, and love. These handmade blankets weren't just covers, they were symbols of unity, survival, and shared strength during difficult years. Coal stoves glowed in many American homes, keeping families warm through long, bitter winters. The smell of coal burning and the hiss of steam radiators filled the air. Children gathered close, drying wet mittens, while mothers cooked hearty meals on the stovetop. Warmth was precious, never taken for granted. The Sears Roebuck catalog was a window to the wider world. Thick as a book, it offered everything from clothes to farm equipment. Families thumbed through its pages by lamplight, dreaming of what they might afford. For rural America, it was hope delivered to the doorstep, wrapped in glossy paper. Kerosene lamps glowed softly in homes far from electric lines. The flame flickered, casting long shadows across walls as families read aloud or mended clothes. Children did homework by their dim light, straining their eyes. The gentle smell of kerosene lingered, an unforgettable reminder of nights spent in quiet, humble simplicity. Homemade rag rugs brightened worn wooden floors. Mothers saved scraps of old dresses, shirts, and curtains, braiding them together into colorful circles. Each square carried memories, hardships, and love. These handmade blankets weren't just covers, they were symbols of unity, survival, and shared strength during difficult years. Families often shared one bedroom or even one bed to stay warm on cold nights. Children huddled close, whispering secrets before sleep, while parents stretched weary bodies after long days. Privacy was scarce, but closeness was abundant. These cramped rooms built bonds of togetherness, teaching gratitude for shelter, however small. Coffee brewed in percolators filled kitchens with a comforting aroma. The steady bubbling sound on stovetops promised warmth and energy. Families often stretched grounds by reusing them, making weaker second cups. For weary workers and anxious parents, even the thinnest cup of coffee was a daily ritual of comfort and hope. Homemade butter was churned slowly, with children sometimes given the task of turning the handle. Cream sloshed into golden butter, spread proudly on bread. The process was long, but the taste was rich, unmatched by store-bought goods. Churning butter wasn't just about food, it was about tradition, patience, and simple rewards. Riding the rails became a desperate journey for thousands of unemployed men searching for work wherever it might be found. Hobos carved symbols to guide one another, shared fires by the tracks, and told stories under the stars. Dangerous and uncertain, it was a life of both hardship and freedom. WPA construction projects gave dignity back to millions of jobless Americans. Men laid bricks for schools, paved roads, and painted murals in post offices. The hum of tools and the sight of progress brought hope. Each project was more than work. It was proof that America could build again. The Civilian Conservation Corps filled forests and fields with young men planting trees, building trails, and restoring parks. For just a small wage, they gained food, shelter, and purpose. The CCC not only gave them dignity, but left behind enduring legacies in America's natural landscapes that still stand today. Dust Bowl migration sent families west, their cars piled high with mattresses and pots. Leaving parched farms behind, they followed Route 66 to California, hoping for work in orchards and fields. Branded as Okies, they faced prejudice, yet carried resilience, courage, and dreams of a better tomorrow for their children. Sharecropping families in the South toiled from sunrise to sunset, giving most of their crops to landowners. Children worked barefoot in fields, mothers carried babies under hot sun, and fathers struggled to break free from poverty's grip. It was a cycle of hardship that chained generations to the soil. Child labor was a grim reality of the 1930s. Small hands packed tobacco, sorted coal, and stitched textiles in dim factories. For families, every penny mattered. Children missed school and lost childhoods, carrying the weight of survival too early. Their futures shaped by necessity rather than youthful dreams. Men lined up at hiring halls, their hats in hand, waiting for a day's work. Hope flickered in tired eyes as names were called, while others trudged home empty-handed. These gatherings told silent stories of pride tested, dignity strained, and the endless search for the chance to provide. Bread lines stretched down city blocks, with men, women, and children clutching tin cups and bowls. Pride was swallowed in exchange for a ladle of soup or a slice of bread. These lines told stories of hunger and endurance as communities leaned on charity to survive the darkest years of the Depression. Hand-cranked clothes wringers turned laundry day into back-breaking work. Women hauled wet clothes, feeding them through the rollers, squeezing out water by hand. The process was messy, tiring, and slow, but the sight of fresh linens hung on clotheslines brought satisfaction. It was labor born of necessity and love for family.
Wooden washboards sat in basins of sudsy water, used by tired hands scrubbing dirt from clothes. The rhythmic scraping became a soundtrack of survival, echoing through backyards and kitchens. Clotheslines stretched across yards, garments fluttering in the wind. Simple, exhausting, yet meaningful work tied families to the rhythm of daily life. Soup kitchens, often run by churches or volunteers, became lifelines. The smell of thin broth and fresh bread drew crowds daily. People who had once known comfort now waited humbly for a hot meal. In those crowded halls, dignity was tested, but no one was turned away in their need. Hoover stew was a Depression-era meal, a mishmash of macaroni, canned tomatoes, and hot dogs when families were lucky enough to have them. Cheap, filling, and endlessly stretched, it filled stomachs, if not hearts. To children, it meant dinner. To parents, it was a painful reminder of how much had been lost. Vinegar pie became a desperate substitute when apples and fruits were too costly. Bakers mixed vinegar, sugar, and spices to mimic the tang of fruit. Families ate it with gratitude, making do with what they had. The taste may not have matched tradition, but it carried the flavor of perseverance. Dandelion greens were plucked from yards and fields, washed and boiled into salad or stew. What was once seen as weeds became survival food. Families learned to find meals in unexpected places, transforming hardship into resourcefulness. Every bite was proof that ingenuity could turn even the humblest ingredient into nourishment. Cornbread was a staple, stretching meager supplies of cornmeal, milk, and eggs into hearty portions. Its warm, crumbly texture filled bellies and homes alike. Baked in cast-iron skillets, cornbread accompanied soups, beans, or simply butter. Cheap and filling, it became comfort food that carried families through the leanest times. Spam made its debut in 1937, quickly becoming a household staple. Cheap, canned, and long-lasting, it was fried for breakfast, served in sandwiches, or mixed into stews. While its taste was debated, its reliability was never questioned. For many Depression-era families, Spam wasn't just food, it was survival in a tin. Franklin Roosevelt's fireside chats crackled through radios, his calm voice offering hope in troubled times. Families gathered close, clinging to every word. In an age of uncertainty, those simple talks made the president feel like a neighbor sitting in the living room, easing fears with warmth and reassurance. Shirley Temple danced and sang her way into American hearts. Her curls, dimples, and joyful spirit lit up theaters, giving weary families a reason to smile. During dark days of the Depression, her films weren't just entertainment, they were tiny doses of happiness that reminded people of innocence and hope. The Wizard of Oz dazzled audiences in 1939, transporting Depression-era America into a world of color and wonder. Dorothy's journey down the yellow roadway captured imaginations everywhere. For children and adults alike, it was pure escape, a rare chance to believe in magic beyond daily hardships. Gone with the Wind premiered in 1939. Its sweeping story and vivid technicolor mesmerized audiences. Amid the Great Depression, people marveled at its grandeur, wept with its tragedy, and found escape in its romance. It became more than a film, it was a cultural event that defined cinematic history. The Marx Brothers brought wild laughter when it was most needed. Their zany antics, quick banter, and chaotic comedy films filled theaters with joy. Audiences roared at their silliness, forgetting worries for a while. In an age of hardship, the brothers proved that laughter truly was medicine. Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times blended humor and heartbreak, portraying the struggles of the common worker. His tramp character, caught in the gears of industry, symbolized every man crushed by modern life. Audiences laughed, but they also saw their own challenges mirrored in Chaplin's timeless, tender comedy. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs enchanted audiences in 1937 as Disney's first full-length animated film. With stunning animation and unforgettable songs, it opened a new era of storytelling. For children of the Depression, it was magic on the screen, a bright fairy tale escape from a grim reality. Amos and Andy filled living rooms with comedy over the radio waves. People gathered around to laugh at the antics of the characters, their misadventures offering relief from daily struggles. In a time before television, these radio voices felt like familiar friends returning night after night. The Lone Ranger galloped across the airwaves, thrilling children with tales of justice and heroism. His famous "Hi-Yo Silver" echoed in living rooms across America. Kids imagined themselves riding alongside the Masked Man and Tonto, finding courage and adventure through stories spun from a humble radio speaker. Big band swing swept dance halls, filling them with energy and movement. Carpels twirled under glowing lights, their worries melting away to the sound of brass and drums. Swing gave people rhythm and joy, uniting communities in dance when times were otherwise heavy with uncertainty. Duke Ellington's smooth jazz carried elegance and sophistication. From smoky clubs to grand stages, his orchestra lifted spirits with every note. During difficult years, his music was more than entertainment. It was soul-soothing art, reminding listeners of beauty, resilience, and the magic of creativity even in the hardest of times. Benny Goodman's concerts brought swing into the spotlight, his clarinet leading bands that electrified audiences. Known as the King of Swing, Goodman helped bridge racial divides by performing with integrated musicians. His shows weren't just music, they were milestones, moments where joy, progress, and rhythm pulsed through Depression-era America. Dance marathons tested endurance as couples swayed for hours, sometimes days, hoping for prize money. Crowds gathered to watch weary dancers push themselves beyond exhaustion. These strange spectacles reflected both the desperation and determination of the era, where entertainment and survival often walked hand in hand on worn dance floors. Jukeboxes became the heartbeat of diners, filling rooms with music for just a nickel. Teenagers crowded booths, choosing their favorite tunes and singing along. In small-town cafes and city eateries, the glow of the jukebox offered joy and rhythm, turning ordinary moments into shared celebrations of sound. Penny arcade machines delighted children and adults alike. For a single coin, you could peer into a moving picture box, test your strength, or play mechanical games. In a time of scarce luxuries, those flashing lights and clunky machines gave Depression-era America small, affordable escapes filled with wonder.
Comic strips like Popeye and Dick Tracy appeared in daily newspapers, brightening mornings with humor and adventure. Children cut them out to save, while adults followed the serialized stories eagerly. These inked characters became household names, offering brief moments of escape and delight during the long grind of hard times. Pulp magazines exploded with lurid covers, detective tales, and wild Western adventures. Sold cheaply, they transported readers into worlds of crime-fighting heroes, gun-slinging cowboys, and thrilling mysteries. For a dime, anyone could escape reality for a while. They were guilty pleasures that shaped imagination in a decade starved for hope. Movie newsreels played before films, showing glimpses of world events, sports highlights, and celebrity happenings. For many, this was their only window into current affairs. Crowds sat in theaters, watching history unfold in black and white motion, bridging the gap between distant events and the everyday lives of ordinary Americans. Saturday matinee double features gave kids entire afternoons of adventure for just a few cents. Westerns, serials, and comedies played back to back, filling theaters with laughter and excitement. Children escaped into fantasy worlds, clutching candy and popcorn, while parents knew their kids were safe in the magic of the movies. Drive-in theaters emerged in the late 1930s, offering movies under the stars. Families piled into cars, children in pajamas, snacks packed from home. The crackle of speakers hanging on car windows made every showing special. It was entertainment, freedom, and togetherness, all wrapped into a uniquely American tradition just beginning. Hoovervilles sprang up on the edges of towns, where the homeless built shelters from scrap wood, tar paper, and tin. Entire families lived in these makeshift villages, cooking over open fires. They stood as haunting symbols of despair, but also of the human will to endure when everything else was lost. Newspaper boys filled street corners, their voices ringing out, "Extra! Extra! Read all about it!" For a few cents, they handed out the day's news, often barefoot, braving rain or snow. They were the grit of city life, young shoulders carrying the weight of the world's headlines. Okies on Route 66 embodied both heartbreak and determination. Families drove rattling cars westward, facing hunger, heat, and prejudice. Yet in every dust-choked mile, there was hope. They dreamed of green fields, steady work, and a future where children would grow up without the dust storms of despair. Fedoras crowned men's heads across America, tilted with style and confidence. Whether worn by factory workers or businessmen, the hat became a symbol of dignity. Even in lean times, men clung to it, a reminder that appearance mattered, pride endured, and character could shine through the weight of hardship. Women in calico dresses brought color and practicality to daily life. Made from sturdy fabric, often sewn at home, these dresses carried both charm and necessity. Patterns of flowers and checks brightened kitchens and fields alike, giving women dignity in the face of hard work and dwindling wardrobes. Knickers, short trousers worn by schoolboys, filled playgrounds and classrooms. Paired with knee socks and scuffed shoes, they gave boys freedom to run and play, even in lean times. Knickers carried the innocence of youth, a small joy in days shadowed by economic hardship and adult worries pressing too soon.
Overalls were the uniform of farmers and laborers. Worn thin from sun and sweat, patched knees and frayed straps told stories of toil. They were practical, sturdy, and humble, but they carried pride, proof of honest work and resilience in a time when survival depended on calloused hands. Women wore aprons daily, tied firmly around the waist as they cooked, cleaned, and tended children. Stained with flour, soap, and hard work, aprons were shields of responsibility. Yet they were also stitched with care, embroidered sometimes, and proudly worn, symbols of love, resilience, and the endless labor of homemakers. Handmade clothing was patched and reused until fabric could give no more. Dresses made from flour sacks, shirts repaired with mismatched pieces, every stitch stretched budgets further. Clothing carried history, each patch telling a story of necessity turned into resourcefulness. Families wore their hardships, yet also their ingenuity, with pride. Sunday best outfits were carefully tucked away, only brought out for church. Starched collars, polished shoes, pressed dresses. Families looked their finest, even if it meant wearing the same outfit every week. Those clothes weren't just garments, they were symbols of faith, dignity, and the value of showing respect. Saddle shoes appeared in the late 30s, quickly becoming fashionable among young women. The two-tone leather gave a playful, stylish touch, a welcome burst of charm in a somber decade. Paired with skirts and bobby socks, saddle shoes carried the promise of brighter days and a step towards post-Depression optimism. Ford Model A cars were still on the roads in the 1930s, chugging along with their boxy charm. Families piled in for errands or Sunday drives. They weren't glamorous, but they were reliable, symbols of practicality in an age where every mile mattered. Studebaker sedans rolled proudly down streets, their sleek lines a touch of elegance during hard years. They stood out among more modest cars, a reminder that design and craftsmanship still had a place. Owning one felt like a dream, a small taste of style in a time of struggle. Riding trains in boxcars became the lifeline of wanderers and job seekers. Hobos risked injury, cold, and arrest for the chance of work in another town. The rattle of wheels and the lonely whistle became the soundtrack of survival, drifting across the Depression's endless miles. Greyhound buses offered affordable travel, connecting small towns to bustling cities. For many Americans, this was their first chance to see beyond their local county lines. Passengers packed sandwiches, carried small bags, and shared stories, as the silver buses became rolling lifelines across a struggling nation. Route 66 became the mother road, guiding families westward with hope packed into overstuffed cars. Every gas station stop and roadside diner became part of their journey. Dusty miles carried both sorrow and determination, turning the highway into a ribbon of dreams stretching across the Depression-era America. Streetcars clattered through American cities, their bells ringing as workers commuted and children pressed faces to windows. For just a few cents, passengers could cross bustling neighborhoods. They were the veins of urban life, connecting communities before cars and highways took over daily travel.
Wooden roller skates, tightened with a key, clattered across sidewalks. Children strapped them onto their shoes, wobbling, laughing, sometimes tumbling. The screech of metal wheels echoed in summer evenings. Cheap and fun, skates brought joy when toys were rare, giving kids freedom in the simplest form. Bicycles with balloon tires became treasured possessions. Kids pedaled through neighborhoods, wind in their hair, bells ringing. For many, a bike meant independence, freedom to explore beyond the block. In lean years, it was more than a toy. It was a child's gateway to adventure and escape. Gas cost just 10 cents a gallon, though many struggled to afford even that. Filling stations became social stops, attendants in caps pumping gas with a smile. The price may seem small today, but every cent mattered when wallets were nearly empty. Crossing the Golden Gate Bridge in 1937 felt like stepping into the future. Its soaring towers and sweeping cables stunned visitors. Families drove across proudly, marveling at America's ability to create beauty and strength in steel.
even in a decade shadowed by economic hardship. Ruth's final years captured America's imagination. The Sultan of Swat was more than a ball player. He was a symbol of joy, power, and possibility. As his career wound down, fans cherished every swing, knowing they were watching the last chapters of a legend. Lou Gehrig's farewell speech in 1939 moved the nation to tears. His humble words, calling himself the luckiest man alive, resonated deeply during a decade of struggle. Fans stood in silence, honoring a hero whose grace and courage left a lasting mark far beyond baseball. Negro League Baseball thrived, with players showcasing extraordinary talent in packed stadiums. These games carried more than sport. They embodied pride, community, and defiance against segregation. Legends were born on those dusty diamonds, proving that the love of the game transcended color lines in Depression-era America. Joe Louis stepped into the boxing ring and lifted spirits across America. Known as the Brown Bomber, his powerful punches gave people pride and excitement. Every fight was more than sport. It was hope, unity, and proof that greatness could rise from humble beginnings. Seabiscuit, the undersized racehorse, became an unlikely national hero. Against the odds, he outran champions and captured hearts. His victories weren't just about sport. They were metaphors for the little guy triumphing during hard times. Seabiscuit gave Americans reason to cheer when hope was otherwise scarce. Softball gained popularity in parks and fields, offering cheap and fun recreation for communities. Men, women, and children picked up bats and gloves, playing spirited games. The crack of the bat and shouts of joy filled neighborhoods, proving that joy could thrive even in difficult times. Roller skating rinks glowed with laughter and music as couples glided under twinkling lights. Skaters held hands, spun in circles, and forgot their worries for an evening. Affordable and fun, rinks became havens of youthful energy, where the depression melted away under the rhythm of wheels. Board games like Monopoly, introduced in 1935, became family staples. Around kitchen tables, players bought properties, rolled dice, and dreamed of wealth. Ironically born in the Depression, Monopoly offered fantasy fortunes and endless hours of entertainment for families struggling to find joy without spending much. Jigsaw puzzles swept America in a craze, their intricate pieces spreading across kitchen tables. Families spent hours fitting them together, finding both challenge and escape. Puzzles cost little but gave endless entertainment, a small comfort that united households during evenings when money was scarce but time was abundant. Marbles clinked and rolled in dirt lots as children knelt in circles, eyes sharp with concentration. Every glassy sphere was a treasure, traded and guarded carefully. In an age when store-bought toys were rare, marbles gave kids joy, competition, and friendship in simple, timeless games. When Prohibition ended, celebrations erupted as beer taps flowed again. Bars reopened, cheers filled streets, and legal drinking returned. For many, it symbolized freedom after years of speakeasies and secret bottles. America rediscovering joy in simple pleasures once forbidden. Once Prohibition ended, hidden speakeasies blossomed into lively jazz clubs. Smoke-filled rooms pulsed with trumpets, pianos, and swing dancers. These spots captured the rhythm of the decade, where nightlife transformed from secrecy to celebration, echoing America's resilience through music and dance. Children pressed nickels against glass jars of gumdrops, licorice, and lollipops. Penny candy stores were magical, bright escapes from everyday struggles. Every sweet purchased felt like a treasure, proof that even in hard times, joy could be bought for a coin. Woolworth's 5 and dime stores offered everything: buttons, toys, dishes, candy, for pennies. Families strolled aisles filled with bargains, finding affordable necessities. The lunch counter served grilled cheese and soda floats, making it both marketplace and meeting place in Depression-era America, where every cent truly stretched. Through thick catalogs, families ordered entire houses from Sears, delivered as kits by rail. With hammers and hope, they built homes piece by piece. These mail-order dreams stood as proof of determination, giving ordinary Americans roofs of their own in lean times.
Chain letters swept through neighborhoods, promising fortune if passed along. People copied messages by hand, mailing them to friends in hopes of changing their luck. In desperate years, even superstitions carried comfort, binding communities through shared belief in possibility. Movie theaters hosted bank nights, raffling cash to lure depression-weary crowds. Families filled seats for the chance at winnings while enjoying double features. Laughter, suspense, and hope mingled under the flickering screen, where dreams stretched far beyond the silver curtain. Traveling carnivals rolled into small towns, bringing neon lights, rides, and sideshows. Children marveled at Ferris wheels, barkers, and fortune tellers. For a few coins, families escaped hardship, stepping into a world of wonder that vanished as quickly as it came. Tent revivals filled fields with hymns, fiery sermons, and clapping hands. People flocked in search of hope, community, and faith during uncertain years. Under canvas tops, voices lifted together, blending spirituality with resilience, offering strength when material wealth was scarce. County fairs celebrated community pride with pie-baking contests, livestock shows, and carnival games. Neighbors gathered to showcase skills and savor small-town spirit. Laughter, music, and the scent of fried dough reminded families that joy could thrive even in hard times. Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal reshaped America, launching programs that put men to work, built bridges, and offered relief. It was more than policy. It was hope. For struggling families, the government finally seemed like a partner in survival and rebuilding dreams. The Social Security Act promised dignity in old age, ensuring elders wouldn't face poverty alone. Signed in 1935, it became a lifeline for millions, symbolizing compassion in law and giving workers hope their later years would hold security, not despair.
Thousands of veterans marched on Washington in 1932, demanding early bonus payments. They camped in makeshift shelters, only to be driven out by troops. The protest revealed desperation, but also the deep loyalty of men who'd served and still sought justice. Workers staged sit-down strikes, occupying factories until demands were heard. Songs, solidarity, and stubborn determination filled shop floors. These protests weren't just about wages, they were about dignity. Strikers risked everything to reshape labor rights, carving out fairer futures for generations to come. Roosevelt's 1937 plan to expand the Supreme Court sparked fierce debate. Supporters saw bold action. Critics feared unchecked power. Though it failed, the controversy highlighted tensions between reform and tradition, showing how the Depression forced America to wrestle with change. Amelia Earhart vanished over the Pacific in 1937, leaving mystery and heartbreak. The daring aviator symbolized courage, independence, and possibility for women everywhere. Her disappearance stunned the world, turning her into a legend whose spirit of adventure still lingers in history. The 1932 Lindbergh baby kidnapping shocked the nation. Headlines screamed tragedy, and the crime of the century unfolded in grief and trial. For a public clinging to heroes, it was a chilling reminder of vulnerability, even in America's most admired families. Americans followed British headlines when King Edward VIII abdicated in 1936 to marry Wallis Simpson. The scandal fascinated Depression-era readers, proof that even royals faced struggles of love and duty. For a moment, the world's drama distracted from local hardship. Jesse Owens electrified the 1936 Berlin Olympics, winning gold before Hitler's regime. His speed shattered records and racist ideologies alike. Back home, he remained a symbol of triumph against prejudice, embodying courage and excellence during a decade shadowed by inequality. The 1939 World's Fair dazzled visitors with futuristic visions: television, nylon, gleaming cars, and the Trilon and Perisphere. In uncertain times, it offered a glimpse of hope, innovation, and possibility. For millions, it was a trip into tomorrow before war loomed.